All right, hello everyone, and welcome to another live stream that we have got coming once again from the Blue Tit Bash. So this is a two-stage tournament, the latest tournament that we have on the Wingspan Tournaments Discord, featuring the European expansion. And this is coming from the group stages of this tournament, and the top three from each group will be going through into a knockout phase. So this is coming from Group C of the Blue Tit Bash and features Andreko and Tabpub. And joining me on commentary once again for this game, I have got Mother Love. So how are you doing, Mother Love?
Hello. I'm excited as always. Tabpub is one of the OJs on this Discord.
Yeah.
He was in the very first tournament.
Absolutely.
So
yeah.
Excited to see how he performs.
Yeah.
Especially compared to the first tournament.
For sure. Yeah. No, he's been around a while. He's kind of part of the furniture, I think, now. In the server, so but first time streamer, so be very, very interesting to see, and obviously hopefully a good experience for him as well. But yeah, we've got a good few viewers watching in the chat, which is great, so keep the comments coming in. We will be reading what you have to say and hopefully interacting with that as well. But I think, having said all that, we're ready to get the game started. So we have done the flip, and Tabpub is going to be going first. So Tabpub, if you would like to send the invite out now, and obviously make sure you got yourself going first, and we can get this game started. So as always, best of luck in this one to both of our players.
Alright, let's see what we got. Oh, he hasn't.
He's getting it ready, but
Tabpub is not furniture. Oh, there's Elsie in chat. Fellow commentator Elsie.
But I don't think that's a bad thing. Say that you're part of the furniture.
No.
It was all good natured.
I'm also part of the furniture.
You are also part of the furniture. Yeah, you've been around for a long time as well. So
I was in the same tournament with Tabpub.
Yeah, exactly. You've been around a while as well. But here we go. That is a lot of wetland birds and not a lot of forest birds.
So unfortunately, not the ones you want for a full tuck.
No. Well, we've got the blackbird in the tray. So this is such a weird start. How often do you see that 5 wetland birds in the hand, and then another 3 wetland birds in the tray? I mean, it's probably what you'd quite like. I mean, obviously we kind of talk about this if you're setting up your habitats. Normally, wetland is kind of the priority, and then you look for the forest. But it is very strange to only have wetland options and not even have anything that can go anywhere else.
Yeah, for sure. I can't quite see the end of ones. It seems like it's not very egg heavy, the end of ones.
No, so
you
we've
could
got
certainly go for
you could
the blackbird and nothing else.
Yeah.
Well, no bird take the blackbird and see from here.
Yeah, so the third EOR is I think it's eggs in platform nests, and then obviously the fourth EOR is birds in the grasslands, but that's kind of far enough away that you could probably not worry too much about getting that grasslands ready. But yeah, I mean I've had a few games like this where the starting hand is not great, and then you've got that sort of tuck and lay bird in the tray, and I think you can sort of gamble a bit. You go for that 5 food, you pick up the blackbird and just start digging, and you're going to be seeing a couple of cards, you're tucking one of them and getting an egg, so you're at least scoring some points, and all the while sort of seeing some of those birds that maybe you can get something to add and make a full tuck, or maybe you just get something that's good for the forest that's going to get you a little bit of food.
I don't mind this start, Canvasback, Golden. You're obviously not going to be able to play both immediately.
Yeah.
But it feels less risky than just going for the yellow-headed blackbird this.
Yeah, I think it's tricky for the point you make, in that you can't play both unless you're going to overpay a bit, because you can keep obviously 1 seed, but there isn't a second one in the bird feeder to be taken. So yeah, a little bit tricky. Obviously the golden eye has potential to be quite nice, and obviously along with the canvasback with those egg spaces on the star nest, that's nice to have as well. But going to be tricky, I think, as well. If you play both of these and use all your food, you start digging and you look for those forest birds, but you then don't have any food to play them. So you are going to have
Well,
to
that's
then...
the thing. Do you play the canvas back, start digging
I
for
think
a
so.
forest bird, and then look into playing the golden eye?
I think so. I think, if you play the canvas back and use 2 of the food for that, you could then keep 1 of the food left over, and then really you're kind of digging at that point for like a nuthatch or something like that. They're kind of one of those cheap single food birds you can get in the forest. Maybe you've got some extra cards as well if you've done a bit of digging with the canvas back, so you can look to discard those and hopefully get a bit of extra food. But yeah, certainly it does feel like food is probably going to be the limiting factor here in this early game for Tabpub.
Yeah, a good point from LC. Digging with just the blackbird could be tough, but I would have probably kept blackbird and canvas back and tried digging that way, because obviously you dig a bit faster.
Yeah,
much better starting hand from.
I think so, and I think
Andreko.
and I think if they are going to go for this Phoebian hummingbird, which it certainly looks like, that is going to be a real big help here for Tabpub, in that that's where the food's going to come from, at least in this early game. If you can get a few free worms or a few free food from the bird feeder with that hummingbird, that is very nice, and certainly is going to help look to get these 2 birds down a bit quicker. And I think as well, if they are going to go in the grasslands, maybe you get some free eggs as well through that golden eye. So
if they can get their hand on the blackbird, this is pretty much 2 birds for a mono habitat engine.
Yeah, is that certainly, I know that's what you'd look to do, kind of grab that blackbird and maybe go for the hummingbird and the Phoebe. if they're keeping this kite, maybe they're not looking down that route, but certainly that is a really good option for them to kind of get that down. And yeah, you kind of give yourself cards and eggs and food all in the same action, and you can start digging as well and hopefully get something to add to that.
I'm not sure what they're thinking, but in their place I would probably assume my opponent would take the blackbird. And if they take the blackbird, you wouldn't want to give them too many food.
Right, I think that's the risk, for sure. So they're kind of keeping their options open here a little bit. I'm expecting that blackbird to still be there, certainly with the kind of start that Tabpub has gone with here. So yeah, we could well see Andreko. Maybe they've kind of kept this flexible if possible. They can go for that blackbird, but equally that mallard is not bad if they don't want to go for the full tuck option and just want a sort of more regular wetland. That is going to obviously help generate some extra cards for them.
From here, take blackbird immediately and you have a perfect engine pretty much.
Yeah, I think that's what I would be looking to do. I think you and me both are kind of thinking along the same lines there, but
what I was thinking? If I was in Andreko's place, people would just take the blackbird because they know I would take it otherwise.
Yeah. That's the thing, that part of this is kind of knowing your opponent, and if you know that they're sort of more inclined to go for that sort of tucking engine, even if it's not something you do yourself, you might have to just grab it to try and deny. But and maybe
to be fair,
is that what Rob's doing here?
There's being inclined to tucking engine, and there's just occasions where it's just a logical path.
Yes, yeah. I think the way that kind of Andreko had this starting hand, and obviously with the mallard there as well, they had options. I think kind of LC kind of looking at this grasslands. I think that's the kind of setup that she likes to go for as well, and kind of heavy on the co-op. Not everyone kind of favours necessarily the full tuck setup, but I think certainly it would have been a good option there to go for it.
Good pulls here from Tabpub. I think maybe they recognized they were going to get a few food. And decided to go for the blackbird.
Yeah, and even that nuthatch that they've grabbed, it's not great at the moment. It is going to be tricky to play, but I think if they are able to get a bit of free food, and certainly if this hummingbird does go down, which I imagine it is gonna get played, then you might get some extra free food, maybe hopefully some seeds, and they can look to play that. Helps the bonus card. Obviously, we'll give them another one, and just at least set up a little bit of food generation in that forest to help get something going.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I thought they were hovering on the mallard.
Yes, I wasn't sure if they were going to go for mallard or gamble from the deck, but another good pull. They keep getting these pretty nice wetland birds, and then obviously maybe some not so nice wetland birds there in the gannet, but Forster's Tern's pretty good.
A lot of wetland birds in this game.
This is the problem. You kind of have too many wetland birds, and you've got to pick some of them to play, and you can't.
I assume there's no seed in the bird feeder, which I assume is why they didn't go for the blackbird.
Yes, yeah, possibly. It obviously makes it a little bit more tricky to get that down, but with Andreko, I kind of wondered. Yes. Oh yeah. Go on.
No, Seti's Warbler counts double for the end of round.
It does.
It's not a yellow hammer type bird.
No. So that would maybe come into play, but certainly I think Tabpub's going to look strong for the wetlands anyway here. But yeah, I think I was kind of wondering from Andreko's perspective, maybe that hummingbird was going to be going in the wetlands just to get something there. Obviously, they haven't got any kind of card draw option at the moment. Really, they probably need to be looking at the mallard. But it's a very nice grasslands. You're kind of getting eggs and food as well. So the main thing really is just to kind of be cautious and try not to give too much free food to your opponent, because obviously that is what Tabpub is really lacking here at the moment.
I mean, both are being very generous. In general, you don't want to. The player that benefits the most from food sharing is the player with the better card draw, and that's Tabpub. And similarly for Tabpub, if you see that your opponent has no wetland bird, a lot of players wouldn't give them cards. But they're both cooperating. So
it is, nice.
Yeah,
and I think the chat was kind of picking up on this as well. We've got one player with the Phoebe and the hummingbird, and then the other player with the canvasback. So it's always a bit more fun, when we get these kind of resources thrown around, a bit more co-op going on. You got some more potential for high scores. So certainly, makes it more of an interesting watch. But I'm working out for Tabpub, what's the priority here. I think they probably need to be trying to get something down in this wetland. They did go for the fish on their previous turn.
They can get the blackbird down now.
So they can force the blackbird down if they want. I wonder if they're kind of looking as well at maybe trying to get this golden eye, especially you see your opponent kind of going really heavy on the grasslands here. The sooner you can get those pink powers down, obviously the more benefit you'll get from that. So could potentially be a nice option. And again, like you said, if you can increase your card draw and give yourself the ability to just see more cards, then getting that free food from your opponent is really going to help out as well, just to get some nice big point birds down, or some good engine building birds as well to add to what they've already got.
You know what I'm thinking? It's a bit silly, but if you could take Grey Lagoose and Seti's Warbler and go for a record 7 birds in one row just for the second end of round.
Well,
just a show of victory.
Yeah. when you said it will be a bit silly, I wasn't expecting that. That's more than a bit silly. But you know what? For the memes, getting 7 birds in a single row, I don't mind it. That could be fun, but
that's an expensive nuthatch.
This is an expensive nuthatch for sure. And especially as you kind of look at the end of round where it's food in your supply. Maybe you'd kind of want to save a little bit just to at least try and be competitive there, because it is going to be difficult.
Yeah, especially because for now the only food that Andreko's getting is food that Tabpub is also getting, so he's not actually building a food advantage.
No, and I don't think you need to kind of desperately go for the food generation here. Obviously it will be something that Tabpub needs to think about and try and make sure they are sort of able to get a bit of food themselves. But like you say, if your opponent's giving you extra food and that's their only way of getting food, then I'm sure you can kind of expect at least a couple more turns from that.
They can get the blackbird down now. I didn't see what card they go.
It was I can't remember the name. It's birds that can live in different habitats. So probably one of the worst ones that they could have got, because they've got basically all wetland only birds, and then obviously that nuthatch which is forest only. So
but that being said, it's not necessarily a super hard card to get the lower bound for.
No, I think
it's a 4 point lower
bound. Exactly 4 points. Having played 4 birds, I think it's pretty realistic, and some of the stronger birds in the game and some nice big point birds as well, they might look to play later in the game. that can fit with that bonus card as well. So
a certain eagle,
a certain unnamed eagle that we won't talk about, because if we talk about it, won't show up. So, but yeah, they got all game as well. When you pick up a bonus card like that in the first round, you do give yourself as much time as possible to try and meet that. So certainly plenty of time, and 4 birds is not too difficult, I don't think.
And Andreko really needs to get their hand on that mallard.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised they've left it this long. I think they've kind of been relying a bit on the free birds that they've been getting, and that obviously has helped to an extent. They've got maybe 1 or 2 from that canvas back, but yeah, I'd almost be expecting my opponent to kind of deny that, because it is a nice bird, and I think play it in round 1, you could still get good usage out of it throughout the game, and obviously help yourself with the cards. But yeah, I think it is a bit of a risk kind of leaving it this long and not really having any sort of wetland option in their hand at the moment. It does feel like a risk.
I mean, it also has a few egg spaces, and that's always nice, especially for the. I mean, I'm a little bit confused why setting up a forest as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of I don't know. It's tricky always, isn't it, when you have Phoebe and Hummingbird like that, because you kind of you either just really go sort of overboard and use it and try and just hope, like you say, kind of get the better card advantage, although it's not really looking the case at the moment. But it is so risky, because every piece of food that you're gaining is another piece of food you're giving to your opponent. And so at some point, I think you kind of have to try and wean yourself off it and try and find a way of being able to generate food alternatively. And I think with the kite and the nuthatch, it's not bad. It's not a bad forest at all. Gets a couple of food and maybe 1 or 2 points as well. So maybe it was kind of okay, I'll use these 2 birds early to get something set up in the forest, but not overly use it, and maybe some powers are going to get skipped, or maybe they're going to be really selective on when they use it or what food they give away. But it certainly gives them options, I think, having something in the forest.
I mean, especially considering what I said earlier, that for now Tabpub is the only one that actually has the card draw, so he's the one really benefiting from the free food there.
Exactly, yeah. And as well, with the ecologist bonus card for Andreko, you're going to want to get some birds down in the forest at some point. I think you might normally look to try and get some big point birds later in the game to try and fill that off, but I think it's not a bad option to at least get those 2 birds down. And they're going to look to build up something in this wetlands quite naturally. You get 2 birds down there, and you've already got your 4 points for the ecologist sorted. So I think when you can kind of get those 4 points and bank them and not have to worry about that, it just kind of gives you a bit more mental space to focus on other aspects of the game.
Yeah. And Andreko is going second, so maybe they're just waiting to see that 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, and sometimes that is the case. Sometimes if you're not happy with the options and you've kind of already got enough to get yourself going in with a first round setup, then I think you can be a little bit patient and wait. They already had obviously the Phoebe and the Hummingbird and the kite that they wanted to get down. They were then given that nuthatch, which they were pretty keen to get that down as well. So I think they have given themselves enough to be focusing on in this first round. That has meant that, like you say, you can kind of be patient and wait and just see what that round 2 tray has for you.
Especially because 1, 2 tray can often really shift the momentum of the game.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you get that fresh tray at the start of a round, it's a big chance for a momentum shift. And I think certainly a lot of the streamed games, and even just a lot of the games I've been playing myself, you can find that just a particular bird will appear, or something comes up in the tray, and it can really swing the game in your favor or in your opponent's favor. So would not be at all surprised if we do see that happen here.
Looks like they're gonna tie.
Yes, okay. Yeah, it was quite an interesting last few turns there at the end of that round. It was kind of they
were doing a food waste.
They were playing chicken with each other. Who's going to blink first? I'm going to take food to go ahead, and then you're going to take food to go back ahead. So in the end, they kind of ended up tying, as you say, and both have 5 food each, and it's not bad. I mean, food and personal supply is always a little bit of a weird one for that first round, but I don't mind kind of really going heavy on that and giving yourself lots of food, because
honestly, it's a weird one on anyone.
It is. Well, it's weirdest at the end, right? Because you don't want to have food left over. but it is kind of tricky because you've got to time it and make sure you've got all the food, and then actually make sure you can get usage out of it by playing birds in the next round.
Looks like they're going to settle for the only wetland bird that was in play.
Yeah, and I mean, you probably have to do that, right? Because you look at the other birds in the tray and you think, are any of these really ones that my opponent is necessarily going to grab immediately and give me something fresh to look at? Egret's not a bad option. I think the mallard probably I would still prefer if they could have had that at this point. But it's not a bad option. You get that down. It's 4 points for just that one food, and gives you the option of discarding and hopefully getting a bit more card draw. So I think really that's kind of what Andreko is going to be looking to focus on here. Get this egret down, and they've got 3 eggs already. You can start discarding those and hopefully get something good from the deck.
Yeah. I quite like what Tabpub is setting up here for now. They're going to be able to probably take food and play that blackbird down and sort of start digging.
Yeah.
Start digging, but in a little bit of a more efficient way than they were currently doing.
Yeah, I think, if you are going to go digging and you are going to hope to try and find something good from the deck, you kind of want those 2 wetland birds down. You can only sort of keep discarding the eggs for so long, especially when you've not really got any resource or egg generation in the grasslands. You are only getting those 2 eggs a time, so I think it's good you get the golden eye down, and now when your opponent lays eggs, they're going to give you that food but also a free egg as well, so it does kind of help you benefit, but it also helps sort of nullify your opponent's actions as well, which is always good.
Also, 3 birds down is pretty okay for the birds in 1 more end of round.
Yes, yeah. I think it would be interesting to see what Andreko can get their hands on. I think where they've got 2 in the forest and 2 in the grasslands, I think they have got options for finding something to add in either of those habitats. So I wouldn't be surprised if they end up tying with 3 each. I feel like birds in a single row always ends up tying for me. I don't know what it is about it, but and even if you get it in that final round, you find you end up tying. You end up tying as 5 each. But yeah, wetland.
Tabpub seemingly only able to draw wetland birds this game.
yeah, it's a tricky one. I'm not sure he's drawn a single, or maybe the nuthatch I think he got from the canvas back, but there we go.
Oh, perfect.
That's pretty good. When you're drowning in cards that you don't want to play and you need a bit of food, and it meets the bonus card as well.
Yeah, already completed.
Yeah, I think you could be pretty happy with that all round. So shame obviously that there's no worm in the feeder, but you could probably still force this down. Then you go for food, and you then do have the food to look to get this blackbird down. So could be a good option.
You get an extra 2 food and a point.
Very, very nice.
Taking food with the Vow Swift instead of not having it, so definitely force it down.
For sure.
An excellent duo, honestly, for Tabpub from here.
Yep. Yeah, what do you make of this common Swift? So Andreko just managed to grab that from the golden eye and immediately get that down. Is that obviously going to help for the end of round here? But do you think there's potential for them to score quite highly from that round end power that it's got?
I'm not sure. Unless they start going heavy on the grassland, because they're not really making a terrible amount of food for now. The forest is not great.
Yeah.
But the Vow Swift is sort of like the Corsican nuthatch, where it's not necessarily an excellent bird, but it's still 5 points for 1 food, and it helps for the end of round. So.
Yeah. I'm kind of interested to see if they do maximize usage on that, because like you say, they're going to have to kind of really hammer that grasslands, and obviously the Phoebe's going to get lots of free worms for them, and maybe depending on how the bird feeder is set up, that hummingbird can get them some free worms as well. So yeah, obviously they'll be able to turn all of those into points, which is very, very nice. But again, if they are hammering that grasslands and they're giving Tabpub 2 food and an egg every time, with the strong wetlands that he's going to have set up, it does feel like it would be a bit of a risk to go for that. But we'll see how much usage that Common Swift gets, because like you say, it's still 5 points for 1 food, and even if you just get a few tucks maybe later in the game, I think you can still make a case for it.
Yeah, but at the same time, you look at Phoebe common Swift, and you think that's a good synergy,
but
it's still like 1 point shared between two birds,
and that's the
to
issue.
some extent, I think you'd rather keep the food and play more birds.
I think so. I
mean, you're just relying just on a hummingbird, or maybe the subpath OS, and it's not enough.
No, I think it's risky to kind of just spam Phoebe and solely use all of those worms for the Swift. Like you say, you're giving your opponent a worm, and then between two birds there, you're just getting a single point. I think there are much better options and much more efficient options for scoring points than that. I kind of see it more as a, if I've got some extras left over at the end of the round or at the end of the game. I mean, if you're in sort of Tabpub situation, you pick that up, you probably play it because you think, I might not make a use for all of these worms that my opponent's throwing at me, so at least I can turn them into points. But
yeah, for sure.
I think if you can get a few extra worms and do manage to turn this into tucks, then it's not a bad option to have. So,
I mean, the thing for Andreko is that it's not the common Swift is a good bird to have, but it's not one they had to play immediately, especially if they could have kept it in hand just so Tabpub is unsure about how much they're going to score on the end of round.
Yeah, I think you're right. It is, it's not one that they're probably going to look to maximize on at the end of this round, for example, because they've not got any worms at the moment. They might lay eggs once or twice, but you're not going to get a huge number of worms from that. So you're not going to be so desperate to turn those into points immediately that you needed to get it down this round. I think particularly with end of rounds in mind, it can be the better play to kind of conceal what you've got and not show your opponent, oh look, I'm going to have 3 birds here. If you kind of wait that for as long as possible, maybe kind of Tabpub prioritizes doing other things and doesn't look to get extra birds down, and maybe you can sort of sneak an end of round win that way.
Yeah, it's always a nice mind game.
It's the game within the game. That's what it is.
Yeah. Looks like Tabpub did end up taking food before playing the Swift.
Yeah. Now I'm wondering if they want to try and get this blackbird down. Now, kind of obviously the issue is if they played the Swift, that's their only egg gone. So, they'd be relying on maybe getting something from the golden eye, or otherwise they'd have to lay eggs themselves to try and get the blackbird down. So I think what they're looking to do is to get this blackbird down, and then obviously when they do start drawing cards, they're going to be getting the tuck cards and the eggs. Obviously it helps for the birds in the row for the end of round as well.
Well, they're probably looking at the Great Egret as well, just to
potentially
end the round.
Potentially, and I mean, would you look to do that then? Would you look to go for the egret and the blackbird as a double play if it could win the end of round?
Probably. I'm not sure it's worth not playing the Vo Swift though, because it just it makes you tempo so much better, the Vo Swift. You're just getting more food and you're getting a point every time. And if for some reason none of the cards in your hand you wanted to tuck, you could just take more cards.
Right. Yeah, and I think certainly with the wetlands they're going to be setting up. They've already got pretty good access to cards, but it's going to be even stronger once they do manage to add to this wetlands. So yeah, I can only think maybe that Vo Swift, if they had the worm, they might have looked to play it. Maybe they didn't want to force it down and use that fish if they were trying to save that. So I think potentially if they do get a worm here, if the Eastern Phoebe gets activated, then maybe they might look to get that down that little bit sooner, and hopefully just help get some more food and some more points as well in that forest. That's going to be very nice, I think, for Tabpub. There we go. Free worm.
They do end up getting the worm.
Free worm. So yeah, obviously they could play the Vo Swift. They might have enough if they wanted to force down this egret and blackbird double play. Obviously they don't have all the eggs for that right now, but that could be something they look to do. Would be quite expensive.
Yeah, they have barely enough food actually.
They have barely
just
enough.
about do it.
Yeah. Alternatively, of course, there is another fish in the feeder right now. So maybe you play the Swift and you go for food. You tuck the Forster's Turn that perhaps you aren't going to look to play. Get a bit of extra food. Lay eggs once more and do the double play. I think you've probably got enough turns to do that. That works for the end of
round.
You
do have exactly enough turns, and that just gives you a better board.
Yep.
Overall.
Yeah, and of course, I think really the key thing, if they can get this wetlands down, it is obviously going to help for that end of round. But again, Tabpub going first in that third round, potentially game-changing third round tray. You want to have as many of those wetland birds set up as possible, so that when you're drawing cards, you are going to be able to look at more cards and score points as well if you have got the tuck power as well. So yeah, lots of good options I think for Tabpub, and if they are going for this Vote Swift here, definitely I like this. I think this is a good play.
Yeah. And yeah, they're gonna barely have enough eggs to just take eggs, play both birds.
Yeah, and it's one of those where you don't have to rely on your opponent. So obviously, if they can get some free eggs, I think they already did manage to get one on the previous turn through this golden eye. They got plenty of space. They've got all these cavity nests down, which is really, really good for them. And obviously that will help out. But they can be completely self-sufficient here. They can go for the food. They can lay eggs, do this double play, and yeah, that's going to be so nice, I think, here for Tabpub. Okay,
it's harder to keep track of what Andreko has because he's not in board view.
Yeah, so I think he's still just got the... Was it the Willet? Or I can't remember.
The Snowy Egret the wetland. It's the same thing as the Willet.
Yeah, basically the same thing. But not great draws here. So I think they were looking at that Cassis Sparrow as potentially a pick up from the tray and thought, no, I'll gamble again from the deck. And yeah, Canada Goose and the Dunnock.
I mean, they don't really have
probably not great.
A clear direction of where to take the game from here.
No. I mean, I think really they're going to have a lot of food, right? If they're going to hammer this grasses, they've already got a few foods. Depends how much they are going to use this Swift again, the point we came back to. But really, it is all the card draw. I think this is a really good kind of showcase of the strength of having that wetland set up that kind of Tabpub has got, is kind of getting the better access to cards. And oh, here we go. Grey Catbird. They're also looking at the Cassis Sparrow, so
switching up to a grassland.
Yeah, not potentially. Yeah, they got plenty of egg space, so you could look to get both of those down, obviously. And,
that bird worth pointing out, the first bird that actually missed the bonus card.
Yes, the first bird.
Back to wetland. Never mind. It was just a temporary break.
Yeah. The game couldn't go that long without giving him some more wetland birds. So, yeah, great point. The only bird he's actually seen in the entire game that meets the bonus card. But we got another hummingbird in the tray. So, yeah, maybe Andreko picks that up and goes even more full carp than they already have done. But, oh, okay. Going for the Swift here, maybe to steal the end of round. If they can play this and then draw cards, move that over to the grasslands. I don't mind that. Obviously, he gets the extra eggs. It's going to help with the cards, and then maybe if they are going to take some food in the forest, they can chuck that as well. And it's helpful in the next end of round. So
it's helpful for all the end of round. They're setting themselves up quite nicely here.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think these migratory birds, they do get a bit of a hard time, but I think when you can make them work for 2 or 3 end of round goals, and also naturally kind of helping a bit with the tempo or a little bit with the resource generation, then I think they can be really good plays.
I mean, especially if it's a star nest and it meets full Bob Expert, which is the best bonus card in the game.
No comment.
Yeah, no, I'll just remind everyone that the commentary team is completely unbiased.
Yeah, that doesn't represent the views of the channel or the server, so it's your views and no one else's. But no, it is a pretty good bonus card. So obviously they've already got the common Swift down as well. So maybe if they can nab that later in the game, that'd be good for them. But
looks like they're gonna tie for another end of round though. Obviously they're gonna tie for this one, but Andreko definitely has the other two.
Yeah, well, are they going to tie for this one? Because...
well, if we see the Great Egret going down, which is what we're expecting here.
Yeah, but so... I don't...
Oh, wait, they don't have enough.
They don't not got the eggs. So Tabpub went for the cards on the last and obviously managed to get the... That's when they picked up the catbird. Yeah, I think they could potentially just about have had enough if they wanted to do... I'm not even sure they could have done Egret into something else. So I think they are probably still planning on trying to use this Egret. They do have the food for it now. They've got the extra fish, so I think they probably did spend just that one more turn drawing cards that they needed to. I think maybe laying eggs, like we said, instead of that, then you go for food here and get that double play down to help tie the end of round. But
they could have had enough for Egret into Blackbird if they didn't take cards.
Yes.
And even from here, they still had enough for Egret into Foster's turn, I believe. No, not quite.
No, I think they were one food short prior to
1 food short
prior to going for food here. So it seems like they're kind of thinking and trying to decide. Okay, obviously got to tuck for the swift. Which of these birds am I not going to play? Probably that pelican can go.
Yeah, I mean they have 4 wetland birds in hand.
Yeah,
only 3 spaces.
Exactly.
So one of them has to go.
Exactly. You gotta be decisive at some point in the game. You got to pick which of these wetland birds you're going to play, if any. So I think certainly we'll expect that egret is going to go down with something else in the wetlands, but.
And Rick was signaling here that Tabpub's not playing fast enough.
Yeah, when you get the passive aggressive, is this a timer bug? I'm going to quit out of the game.
I'm not saying anything, but I'm just going to relog to be sure.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, all good. It is back over to Andreko, and as expected, they go for the cigars, and we get a cached food on the egret, which they will be very happy about. So.
So you know what I've just noticed is that for now they only have 1 wetland bird. Obviously they can use the chimney swift to sort of snipe the last end of round, but I think they kind of want to use that for ecologist.
Yeah, that's the tricky thing. They are kind of competing against each other, really, the ecologist and the final end of round. So maybe they can find a couple more wetland birds. I think that's really what they need at this point. Even if it's not that kind of big, engine brown power that you're looking for, I think even just something that's going to score points or get a bonus card that you would look to play in the wetlands. I think that's probably what they're going to hopefully look for as we go into this third round.
Mm-hmm.
So,
do we always get that teal power pop-up, or did they play it? Oh yeah, because the common swift.
The common swift. Okay, yeah. It's just they had no worms, so. All right, into the third round, and we got the rough. So, pretty.
We got the rough, and we got the common graggle.
Yeah, 2 good options.
Still not enough to beat bird band. But 2 good options nonetheless.
Yeah, I mean, if you're Andreko here, do you look to grab one or both of the grackle and the rough here? Of course, it's Tabpub going first. Okay, but they're going to lay eggs. I think they want to do this egret into blackbird. They've got the food for that. They just didn't quite have the eggs, so I think that's possibly why they went for the sparrow, so they could lay eggs here first before doing that. So
I don't think the wolf is in the best interest, because it's in the best interest to not have 3 cards left over at the end of the game, since they have the Vow Swift.
Yes. Yeah, that's very
especially
true.
if you take the graggle and the wolf would sort of compete against each other, so I would take both.
Yeah, I think you can make it work. I mean, like you say, I think the kind of drawback is that another catch with the egret. I think the drawback really, like you say, you play the grackle, you draw cards, you're going to be tucking some of them away, so you're not going to leave yourself with a lot. But I think you kind of look at Andreko's hand at the moment. There's a lot of trash in there that they're not going to look to play. So I think ordinarily, like you're right, they wouldn't have enough cards, but I think they can get away with it here, and certainly with all that food they can get in that grasslands. I think being able to get these 2 birds down. I mean,
the wolf, all things considered, we were just talking about they need a wetland bird. The wolf is kind of an 8-point bird because it goes in the wetland.
Exactly. Yeah. You're basically guaranteed those tucks as long as you can keep enough cards around, which I don't imagine is going to be a problem here for Andreko. So. Yeah, you see it as an 8-point bird that kind of has that added benefit of a little bit of card cycle at the end of the round. And I think particularly when your wetlands isn't great, I think even just to have that option of cycling a few cards at the end of this third round, that could be really, really helpful and set them up strongly as they go into the last round.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we've got egret into Forster's turn instead of the blackbird. So obviously it helps a little bit more with the card draw, but you are going to be missing
the nest box builder as well.
Yeah. So they are one away now on the nest box. So they just need one final cavity nest to help meet that. And maybe they're looking at this end of round goal as well with the extra star nest that could come into play and help them be competitive in this end of round. But
I mean, from that point, I don't know how many Blackbird activations you were realistically gonna get.
Yeah, I think it did look like they were considering the Blackbirds, and then they kind of went back and forth and thought about it. And I think you're right. This is one of those where you do kind of have to think about, what your game plan is going to be. How many turns am I going to draw cards? Okay, how many points is that going to get in terms of tuck cards and eggs versus the extra cards I might be drawing through the Forcer's turn and potentially, playing some big point birds at the end. That's really what they're going to have to be sort of weighing up here. And
the thing is, the Blackbird is already
it's already the same points.
Compared to all the other tuck and lay, it's already 4 points. And if you just activate it once, that's 2 points. So that 2 points from the 3-point difference that you get from going on the upper stage of Nestbox builder.
I think I would have still looked to go for the Blackbird. I think they probably have enough turns drawing cards because you look at the birds in their hand. I mean, that you could still play the Blackbird here. I suppose that might be, especially if you get a free egg here. You could kind of be greedy and go for them both, and just hope that you get a bonus card later that gives you Wetland Scientist or something. But I think certainly there are still enough turns where they are going to need to draw cards because you look at what they've got. Maybe you go for the Catbird with the Sparrow and just spam eggs a little bit at the end of the game, but I think they're going to need to draw cards at least a few more times, particularly if your opponent keeps giving you all this free food. You want to make most of it and try and get some big point birds down.
I mean, they could take egg. They could play the Catbird immediately, actually, start spamming eggs, but we're still in round 3.
Yeah.
They have another 8 goes to go.
Yeah, I mean...
20 egg spaces.
Yeah, I guess it depends how close they are in this end of round. So they're going to have 9 spaces. I'm trying to remember on Andreko. I think they might only have 7. Although no, they've got the Chimney Swift. Sure. They've got the Chimney Swift, so that's got a couple more.
I don't like forcing the Catbird here, despite the fact there's a cherry in the bird feeder. Especially because they could have took the Blackbird.
Right. Yeah, I think if they're not planning on playing the Blackbird, you could easily go for food there. You tuck it, you get the worm, and like you say, you then don't have to overpay. And again, potentially that might help later in the game if you do manage to find some nice big point birds. So, they are going to go for cards here. And we've got a red knot. That could potentially help out if they are going to get a lot of free worms, particularly from the Phoebe. Get that down pretty easily.
That's the last Nestbox builder.
And it's the
10-point bird from her.
The flycatcher, very very nice. When you've already got all those cavity nests, and like you say, if it helps with your bonus card as well, all the better. So I think they're looking at this falcon. They're kind of looking at the tray here, the bird feeder, I should say, with the 2 rodents, potentially kind of easier to get that down. But yeah,
I mean, falcon flycatcher. That's 4 birds in the grassland.
Right. Yeah. It's going to help with that end of round as well. So. I don't mind that. I think you could probably go for food a couple of times, maybe even just once if your opponent is going to keep giving you some free food, and look to get both those birds down. You've got a pretty nice grasslands. You're scoring points. You're laying lots of eggs, and helping for that final round goal as well. So certainly feels like it's coming together. I think now for Tabpub. I think they did kind of struggle. Once they got that egret and the Forces turned down, and then now they've got something in the grasslands as well. I think this is feeling better, and it's certainly looking better for them.
They're gonna have to wrestle with the tough decision of tucking the red knot, which they kind of have to do it.
I think so.
I don't think you can afford to play it from here.
No, I think certainly you kind of look at the birds in the hand and the number of turns left. I feel like falcon and flycatcher, and then go for eggs. That feels like that feels like it's going to score more points. You're going to help the bonus card. You're going to help the end of round goal. Red knot is really, really nice. I do like it, and it is a shame to kind of not see it used. But that does kind of feel to me like the way I would go is to tuck the knot, and potentially the waxwing if you need to go for cards again. or go for food again, I should
We
say.
can actually see one of the ash-footed flycatchers' strength here, because if they go for food, they play it first. They won't actually need to go for eggs again to then play the peregrine falcon.
True.
So
That is a good point.
Save them a little bit of a turn here. Well, it doesn't save them a turn. It saves them 2 points.
No, and actually, they go for food here. You get the cherry and the rodent. You then get the worm from the Vo Swift. That's your 5 food. That's all you need.
Yeah.
So you get the food. You play the flycatcher, and then you play the falcon.
You still compete for the end of round because of your star nest.
Right. Yeah, I think that's probably the one thing that is kind of playing on their mind. They are thinking, okay, if I lay eggs, I can get something on the egret, which obviously they can't do through the Golden Eye's power. And it is still 5 points for laying eggs. Obviously, they will kind of have to be a bit mindful of the egg space, because if they are going to just play these 2 birds and spam eggs for the final round, if they're getting 4 or 5 eggs a turn with that sparrow as well, that might get them close to filling up, as well as some free eggs from this Golden Eye. So it's kind of worth bearing in mind. But yeah, I like this. I like going for food here. The food was in the bird feeder that they needed. And I think when you see that, you grab it, and you kind of have that peace of mind that okay, I can get these birds down, and not have to worry about trying to overpay for something.
Yeah, I mean, they can't win the end of round. Andreko already has 10 eggs. It's number of eggs.
Has he got to? Has he got? Yeah, so he's got to 9. I think Tabpub could tie it if he wanted to.
Well, he only has 2. He can get 5.
I think he could. Yeah, I think he could have done if he hadn't gone for food. Right, you could have laid eggs twice, but again, I think you prioritize getting the birds down before you lay eggs, because you naturally get that extra egg, and then you're hoping for an extra point as well from the falcon, which goes a little bit towards, making up for that lost points on the end of round. But they're kind of looking at the eggs again. I think this is, again, like you say, this is one where you count and you see, okay, I've only got 2. I can lay another 5, get to 7. That's not going to get me there. So it's not worth laying eggs here. You want to look to get these birds down first, and really make sure that you're maximizing the opportunity when you do choose to lay eggs in that final round.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, they're going to have a pretty good last round.
It feels very natural, and I like to see that. I think it's always a lot easier in the game when you do find yourself in that position where it's pretty straightforward. I want to play some birds and lay eggs, and you can see what your points are going to be. It feels very certain. You're not kind of gambling on re-rolls or bird feeder or bird card draws or anything like that. It's all very much kind of in your own hands, and yeah, that always makes me feel a lot more comfortable. Okay, so falcon goes down first. Obviously, that will make it harder to play the flycatcher. They are going to be gambling that they can get that free egg, but I think probably Andreko is going to be looking to lay eggs anyway. It's a big point scoring turn, obviously helps get some extra resources. They will still have 3 cards left that they probably aren't going to be looking to play, so they can still maximize on the rough, which I think that's kind of what they're going to be looking to do. And really,
that's what they're doing.
That is what they're doing, and I think they kind of need to hope they can get something good, right? I think maybe you might look at that bitten in the tray as, okay, it's going to help my ecologist bonus card. It's going to help score big points. You want something that you can use all this extra food that you're getting through your grasslands. You want to turn that into points somehow. They've got the Swift that can help turn some of those free worms into points, but really it kind of needs to be birds at this point, because they are going to run out of egg space pretty quickly at this rate.
They skip the tuck, and this is kind of another case of if you were gonna skip the tuck, since you're already winning, you could have just taken cards first.
Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of depends what Andreko's thinking, because they probably are going to have to draw cards once more. So it's whether they're going to tuck here with the rough.
They're waiting for the tray.
Maybe they're waiting for the tray, but maybe they want that bitten first. Maybe they want to play that and then go for cards and get the extra ones, which I don't mind.
Okay, yeah.
I think the bitten is pretty good here. Obviously, they do have the least wetland birds, so
that makes sense. Yeah,
they would be able to maximize from that. and they grabbed the rodent, so they could force it down if they wanted to on the first turn of that last round, and just help a little bit with that extra card draw. So yeah,
that makes sense, but it's still missing 2 points.
It is. I probably still would have gone for the tuck there, unless they're really planning on playing any of these other birds, which I can't imagine they would, unless they're going to play hummingbird and really spam the free food and try and get as many worms as possible. That would be a bold move for sure, but it does look like that is the one they're going to be keeping. So we shall see what they go for here. Another migratory bird. Oh, okay. Well, they didn't go for the bittern.
Something very interesting, to be fair.
So, kind of trickier final round here for Andreko to work out what to do.
Yeah.
Is it too late for the goal?
The Northern Goshawk is pretty good for Tabpub. Actually, who has Falconer? Oh, he didn't keep Falconer.
No, neither of them have Falconer, but
okay.
It could still be worth a pickup for Andreko, but I don't know if they want to be going for cards necessarily. It depends how much tucking they do on this Grackle. You've got 5 turns and 4 birds, so if you're either tucking a bird or playing a bird on every turn, you're going to run out at some point. And if you want to make the most of that rough as well, at the end of this round, you want to have some extra cards. So it certainly feels like a trickier final round for Andreko to navigate, whereas, like we said, if you're Tabpub, you get this flycatcher down and you just start hammering eggs and scoring lots of points that way. That feels a lot more natural at this point of the game.
I mean, it looks like they could play Frontless Gull, and that's going to help them for both the Grackle and also collecting cards for the worth, while at the same time getting rid of eggs.
Exactly, and it helps for the end of round as well. So at this rate, obviously we know that Tabpub's going to get this flycatcher down and probably not going to play anything else there. But I think if you're Andreko, being certain that you can get to those 5 birds and you're not going to get beaten, you kind of have that at least a tie, but obviously pretty strong position to win it as well. Then I think you're happy with that.
Yeah, it's a pretty good girl from her.
Although
Cherries, I wonder if they're going for the scissor-tailed flycatcher.
I think so. Because they could have gone for the reroll, and if they had, they would have obviously got a free fish there, which would have been very nice. But yeah, I wonder if it is going to be flycatcher down and go for the spam. But they tucked they discarded the worms, I should say, on the last round for the common swift. So if they hadn't done that, they would have been able to get this flycatcher down. That one turn sooner and maybe helped out a bit more. So it is a little bit on the slow side, but obviously scores a lot more points than the goal.
It's a lot more points. They're also probably going to be able to maximize their common swift, but I don't know if it's more points than the Franken's guy.
Yeah, I think you have to really take into account all the tuck cards that you would be getting, right? So you'd be getting more tuck cards on the Grackle because you're not going to run out of cards. You're going to get those extra 3 on the rough as well that you've got to bear in mind. So if that's 3 tucks on the rough, a tuck and an egg on the Grackle, that's 5 points. That's already the difference between the flycatcher and the goal. So I think you could have certainly looked to go for that and really kind of maximize on the tucks and the extra cards that you're going to draw. But just for Tabpub again, easy enough, get the flycatcher down. Now they do have the 3 worms, so if they're feeling like they want to gamble on this red knot, they can still do it.
I was thinking the same thing. Michael just pointed out in the chat. If they do get, which would be expected from her, to get rid of 3 worms, they could play the red knot. The grassland is about 7 points now.
Yep.
And the red knot's a 7-point bird, so they need a 2-point bonus card.
Yeah.
But if they get like wetland scientist, something like that.
Absolutely, yeah, that's what you're looking for. Wetland scientist. I mean, even food web expert would be pretty good at this point for Tabpub as well. 4 points. So yeah, I think probably what I would have been looking to do originally, if your Tabpub here, is you lay eggs and you probably copy the falcon because you might run out of space if you copy the sparrow.
Oh no. If you want to play the red knot, you definitely copy the sparrow, and then you try to get 2 points on breeding manager.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I think originally, if you weren't going to play the red knot, if you didn't have the food,
yeah, for sure,
you wouldn't be able to copy the sparrow, and you would have to copy the falcon and maybe risk getting that point or not. Whereas now, if you are going to play the red knot, you can pretty safely copy that sparrow. You know you're not going to fill up on the egg space. You know you get that guaranteed 6, pretty likely 7 points with the falcon, and then you go for the red knot. Hope you can draw a nice bonus card, and if not, it is still 5 points, which I think you can be happy with.
Actually, you can get 3-point breeding manager.
And you take that. I think 3 points. Yeah, 3 points. You take that at the end of the game. So
I mean, the last time I had to lay eggs once, and I sort of worked out, okay, I can't max out Zoologist, so I'm gonna try and get 1 breeding manager, and then I got breeding manager and another one that was 0 points.
Nice.
And that's it's not when you score high that you think you're good at Wingspan. It's when you got 1 extra point on breeding manager, and you think,
when you planned for it, and it came through. Big brain move there.
You summon it into existence.
Absolutely, yeah. All right.
All things considered, maximizing the amount of bonus cards you can qualify for.
Yeah. It's something you want to bear in mind, right? You want to try and spread out your eggs, I think, kind of like what Tabpub has done here, just in case you pick up Oologist. You want to try and qualify for that. But also, you think about breeding manager. You think about making sure, okay, how many birds have I got that have 4 spaces? I want to make sure I kind of get as many birds down on, or as many eggs down on those birds as I can. So, always worth bearing in mind. But yeah, we've got a poll up in the chat for who you think is going to win this game, and I think it's quite a tricky one. I think probably
it's hard to say without knowing the bonus cards.
Yeah, I think probably Andreko was going into this final round slightly ahead. I think they kind of already had more points down on the board, but again, this end of round goal for Tabpub has been so smooth. They got the big point flycatcher down, loads of eggs. They've been able to pretty smoothly just lay eggs here, and if they are going to look to get this red knot down for big points as well, it's very, very nice. Whereas obviously Andreko, they kind of had to go for cards, and they get a lot of points when they lay eggs, but egg space has been the issue. So they did have to play, I think it was one of the hummingbirds. They got that down in the wetlands, so not the kind of big point play you're looking for in the final round. Obviously helps for ecologists for a couple more points. But I think they are gonna maybe miss out on some of these eggs, or some of these tuck cards, I should say, with the rough, which is a bit of a shame. But yeah, kind of tricky. Maybe it's going to be flycatcher and eggs.
For now is still significantly in front as far as it concerns, tucks and caches. He has a bunch of birds with just 1 point spread around his board there.
Yep.
A few on the snowy egret. He has the Mississippi kite and the other thing.
Yeah, and I think it can be sometimes easy to miss those when they are spread out in that way. So, obviously.
And he's 10 points informed on eggs as well.
Now, how about that for a pickup from the red knot? Ethologist for 6 points.
Oh, fantastic!
You take that. I don't think you could hope for much better than that. So, almost doesn't really matter what cards they draw here. I mean, unless you get some kind of nice, maybe an Oriole or something like that you could play with another free worm, I think you probably just look to go for the eggs here again on your final two turns. And
maybe Baltimore Oriole. They could play Baltimore Oriole actually. If assuming they get food.
If they get I think they can feel pretty safe in getting some more free worms, and I think certainly it looks like from this perspective that it is going to be the flycatcher that's going to go down for Andreko, and then it's going to be one final round of eggs, and hopefully get as many worms as they can to turn into tucks with that Common Swift, which it's not bad. For a final couple of turns, you get 6 from the flycatcher, and then maybe 6 or 7 from laying eggs, and then obviously all those tucks as well at the round end, and they're going to win this end of round goal. So, I think it does feel like they've had the advantage.
They do have a tuck, so they get 6 points from laying eggs, and then they're gonna get 3 tucks on the Common Swift.
Yes,
Cowbird. They did get Cowbird for the end of round, but it's not worth playing, considering how strong the Guasen action is.
Yeah, I mean it's, I don't. Yeah, it's kind of it's probably 50-50, right? If you play the cowbird, you get 3 points for the cowbird, you get 3 extra for the end of round, and then it gets you another point because you can discard a food to get an extra egg. So it's 7 points, and if you get a free egg from it as well, it's 8 points. There's 2 turns.
I miscounted. Okay, so the cowbird is actually worth going for.
I think it's worth playing. I think it's worth playing because you
definitely
you get the guaranteed points, whereas obviously you're kind of risking on the Falcon activating. So yeah, I think it's worthwhile. With all this free food, it's kind of been quite nice for Tabpub to be able to pick up something that they can play, and yeah, help the end of round, and obviously help get maybe a couple of extra eggs as well through the pink power.
Yeah, the cowbird is 8 points, as Token Cash said.
Yep.
It is going to be 8 points if you take into account the food thrown away, the end of round points, and the eggs they're going to get. While the grassland is 7 points, but not 7 points guaranteed. We've seen, if you remember yesterday, or was it yesterday? I don't know. Last game we were commenting together, but it ended up on a tie.
Oh yes.
And it came down to a golden eagle miss.
Yeah.
On
that
like
was painful.
the only golden eagle activation. Yeah.
Yeah. It got activated once, it missed, and then they lost by a single, or they lost on the tiebreaker. So. Always painful when you are relying on these hunting birds to activate. But yeah, there we go. Tabpub keeping the cowbirds. They could look to get that down. And yeah, I think it is an 8-point turn, whereas eggs is kind of guaranteed 6, at most 7. So I like these kind of situations where you have an unusual play on the final turn that actually scores so many points. Like penultimate turn cowbird in 99% of situations, you'd be looking at that thinking, what are you doing? That is not the time to play a cowbird. But in this case, yeah, with the end of round and all those extra points, it's gonna be certainly the worthwhile play here.
100%, yeah. And what I said earlier, it's when you get that extra 1 point.
Yeah. When you squeeze everything out. Yeah. It certainly feels very satisfying. So I think that's kind of what Tabpub's doing here. They're kind of they're counting again. Okay, I get 4 from this. I get 1 from this. I get maybe 1 from this. And then you look at the end of round goals. You take all of that into account. Okay, I'm going to go from losing to tying. That's going to be worth 3 points net compared to my opponent. So yeah, this is where you do all your sums and you work out how to squeeze those extra points out. It's a very satisfying part of the game.
The word not actually really paid off. And it's interesting because from Andreko's perspective, you were probably thinking, at this point I can throw food around because they're not going to be able to capitalize on it, they're just laying eggs.
Right.
But they were able to both play the wet knot, get a 6-point bonus card, and then tie them on the end of round with the cowbird.
Yeah, I think it is one of those, like you say, sometimes late in the game like that, you kind of feel like, okay, if my opponent's best move is to lay eggs anyway, I can pretty safely just chuck food at them. They're not going to be able to maximize on that and get any, usage out of it. Whereas obviously for Andreko, they've been able to use it not only to play this flycatcher, but any extra worms are going to be worth points with the Common Swift. So yeah, in most scenarios, you probably wouldn't expect that food to come back and bite you, but that red knot, that was 11 points including the bonus card, and then it enabled this cowbird, which also squeezed out maybe 1 or 2 extra points. So that's potentially an extra 5 or 6 points over what the original lay eggs action would have been that you've given away just by chucking a bit of extra food your opponent's way.
Yeah.
All right.
It's gonna be close.
I feel like it's gonna be close. So the poll is 80-20 in favor of Tabpub.
But often, the polls don't. They're not very nuanced. If everyone thinks Tabpub is gonna win by 1 point, it doesn't matter how close they are. He's still gonna dominate the poll. So it doesn't necessarily represent how close this game actually is.
No, and I love the chat, I love our viewers, but like us, they are terrible at calling game results. So I would not be surprised to see this be completely wrong, because normally we are completely wrong as well. But okay, here's a critical thing. So is Tabpub going to skip the hummingbird, or are they going to get greedy and grab the free food? Because if you take the food and give your opponent a reroll, and they get a worm to turn into a tuck card point, that can cost you. So this is again one of those little nuanced kind of things that you got to pay attention to, and certainly the right play here is to skip the hummingbird if I'm looking at this right.
Oh yeah.
Go on. There we go. Good to see from Tabpub. He is paying attention. That is some high-level wingspan. Yeah. Absolutely, and that's what experience gets you. You know, when you've been on the server for as long as he has, you know what you're doing, and are able to recognise when to skip the hummingbird. So very good play, and denying potentially a worm that could have got tucked behind the common swift. So good to see. And there we go, a free egg, the only free egg you're going to get from that cowbird. But
looks like Andreko has a not insignificant lead on Tabpub actually, which I was suspicious about, but I was sort of hoping Tabpub would win.
Yeah, well, obviously this end of round is going to be tied, so they are going to split some points there. Pretty nice final turn here we're looking at from Tabpub, so they'll get 7 guaranteed, maybe 8 if that Falcon.
Maybe 8.
If that Falcon is going to play nicely, they can.
And they just got 1. Points. So what is it? Yeah, maybe actually like a 2-point difference between the two.
It certainly has the feeling.
I don't know. My math is pretty much always incorrect. So.
Oh, there we go. So we do get a hunt on the Falcon, but yeah, it certainly feels like it's going to be a very close game. I think Tabpub's really
like 105 to 103.
Yeah, I think Tabpub's really maximised on this final round. You know, it was pretty nice bonus card pickup from the knot, but you know they did the maths. They worked out the cowbird was the right play. To kind of squeeze that extra point out. So it's felt very smooth. It's felt very, very smooth, I think, in this end game to kind of cut back that deficit, because it did feel like Andreko had a pretty sizable lead going into this last round.
107 with that common swift.
That's what you're calling, all right? 107. Let's see if you've done your sums right. So here we go. We do have a tie again.
Ooh, exciting.
On the final end of rounds. And we go into the scores.
I like those games because it's been very close all along, you know.
Yeah.
A few back and forth, but generally close throughout the game.
It has been a bit back and forth. So here we go, Tabpub with a bit of a lead there. Slightly clawed back with those end of rounds. I think probably eggs is where Andreko is going to come back. And we go into the tuck cards. And we have the final result is Andreko 107. So Tabpub's 102.
Very clean.
So two very strong scores, both over 100, which you like to see. And certainly I think with the co-op food powers, that always helps get those higher scores as well. But very, very good game from both players. Very clean end game.
Very good display of Wingspan, actually. Absolutely. That was a great game to watch.
Absolutely. So I will undeafen both of our players and get them back in briefly just to see how they felt on that game. So
this is where you can see. This is where you start looking. Oh, where did I miss something?
Yeah. That's always the way. But I'll come first to Andreko. So obviously, congratulations for winning that game. Pretty high scoring one and relatively close in the end, the 5 points difference. But you did manage to get it over the line. So yeah, you know, how do you see that game going from your perspective?
I thought I had a great start with the Eastern Phoebe and the Hummingbird. I thought it was pretty solid, whereas I think that Tabpub struggled a lot at the beginning because he had no cards to play on the forest, so he had an issue with the food. However, he had a very strong ending. I was very afraid after seeing his bird count and the amount of points he made with bonus cards.
Yeah,
I thought I was losing this.
Yeah,
it was very close and very well played by Tabpub. So yeah, great game.
Yeah, I think we certainly thought it was going to be close as that final round kind of went through. But yeah, I'll come to you now, Tabpub. Certainly, like I say, you know, it was a bit of a struggle, I think, in the early game with getting the right cards. It seemed like you were drawing nothing but wetland birds, but then once you started to get that grassland set up, certainly it gave you a lot of points in that final round.
Yeah, it gave me some opportunities, but for the first entire turn, plus, I felt like the Christians in the Colosseum. It was like, oh my god.
We rarely see that. Starting had 5 wetland birds, 3 wetland birds in 2A.
Yeah.
And then the first 2 pools, I think, were only wetland birds. It's like, how many are there in the deck?
Yeah.
I don't know, but I saw a third of them at least. I felt like Noah.
Yeah.
It was like...
And on the other hand, Andreko didn't have a wetland bird until round 2.
Yeah, it was two opposites really. You had one player who had loads of eggs and loads of food, and then the other player was sort of stocking up on all the wetland birds. So, very, very different kind of ways that played out in the early game.
I would have traded so much.
I bet.
And rather for that Foster's turn.
Yeah.
I could have come up with a tree swallow or something like that, so I could flip cards.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was a good game. I was really sitting there at the end trying to avoid crunching points in my head whether the cowbird was a better play than just laying eggs. But I figured tying the goal was worth it.
Yeah. I think we did our best. We did our best to do a bit of maths live, and I think the cowbird did come out 1 or 2 points ahead. So we were happy to see that go down.
Depending on whether the hunt is successful.
Depending on the falcon, yeah, and getting that free egg as well on the final turn. So, but no, like I said, very clean end game, and I think very well played. Very well played for both players. Like you said, high scoring. When you see both players get over 100.
Bander killed me.
Yes, yeah, it always hurts to draw a blank on that bonus. So definitely a shame, but. Yeah, thank you for streaming that game for us. A very good watch. So, very entertaining
thanks
match.
for having me.
Yeah.
Good luck, Andreko. I'm out of this one entirely.
Thank you so much. It was a great game and a pleasure.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. And thank you.
It was a great game to watch.
It was a great game to watch.
Everyone enjoyed it.
Yes.
I for sure enjoyed it. So, thank you for...
Yeah. Really good game. So, cool. All right. I think we will wrap things up there. So... Thank you, everyone who has tuned in and watched this game.
To the audience too.
Absolutely, and we do have another live stream game tomorrow, so please do check out all the details on the Discord for that one. And hopefully we will see you again on one of these live streams very soon.